The last two Shadow Warrior games and the remake of the Shadow Warrior franchise are games that I look back on fondly and that I see in a very positive light. Shadow Warrior 2 specifically was a fantastic sequel for the reboot and had me playing for dozens of hours. I enjoyed the take on the entire series as a whole with a Diablo-esque loot, some good comedy and co-op multiplayer. So does Shadow Warrior 3 do better than its processor and take the series even further into fun-filled enjoyment? The short answer is no. Not even close. If you watch through this and enjoy it, please remember to do me a favor and like the video, and subscribe or ring the bell if you like the content that the channel produces. We launched only 2 weeks ago, so every bit helps. Please spread the word if you enjoy. Thanks. Shadow Warrior 3 suffers from what happens when developers listen too hard to criticism of the fans. I don't think that it's a bad game by any means. It was still enjoyable, but it's definitely a far cry from the previous title in the series, and I can safely say that it's a step back in almost every sense. So what is the third game about? Well, it takes place shortly after the second game, except that a giant mega dragon has basically brought about the apocalypse. You find Wang at the beginning wallowing in his failure to be able to save the planet, borderline insane, talking to a mask and raving about how he wanted to be a hero.
Hold you. Hey! Shut up! Shut the fuck up! Wasn't flattening my favorite ramen shop enough for you? Now you want to take him away from me? Again? What else do you want from me, huh? What do you want? You might be dead, buddy, but you're not forgotten. And I will not lose you again. Not to that homeless oversight gecko! Woohoo to me. The last ninja in the world. Best friend to the late god of mischief. And the bonehead who brought on the fucking apocalypse.
Throughout the story, you'll encounter familiar characters, meet a couple new ones, and see if Wang has what it takes to redeem himself and eventually save the world, or well, what's left of it, or if he'll fail once again and doom everyone and everything to being eaten. Graphically, the game's great. I think, honestly, the previous title looked a little better in the sense of art style and direction, but for the style they're going for in 3, they nailed it.
Wow. Would you look at that view?
It's very pleasing on the eyes, with extremely vibrant colors, visually impressive enemies, and oh so satisfying gore and explosions. The UI is very clean and simple, straight to the point, and I honestly didn't have a single complaint about what was being smashed against my eyeballs at any moment. I'd say there's an over amount of effort put into the visuals, as most areas of the game look immensely pretty, only to be passed up in a few scant moments as you blitz from area to area without ever slowing down. Voice acting and story are easily the strongest part of the game, and Wang is funnier and more charismatic than he's ever been in the previous titles. The sheer number of one-liners in combat while traversing, idling, picking up new weapons, etc. is staggering, and I have to give them huge props for that. There were several times while I was playing that I was laughing my ass off, having to hit escape to prevent myself from dying just because of some of the deliveries being that good. Interactions between each character involving what's going on in the moment are so fucking good, with one specific fuzzy character that was added really squeezing that much more entertainment out.
That's not just some random animal. That's a tanuki, Otoko's spirit animal. A manifestation of her power.
Oh, come on, man. You know what it is. It's your fucking girlfriend's trash panda.
She's not my girlfriend.
Hey, no judgment here. She's not my type, but hey, whatever tickles your pickle.
Wang himself really delivers on just being himself, and everyone really needs more Wang in their lives. Gameplay, I'd say, is completely different from the previous titles, with a much more Doom-like flow and combat system, coupled with a very Mirror's Edge parkour-light traversal. There's many segments in the game where you're simply running, jumping, and grappling to avoid falling objects, explosions, and avalanches, all of which were enjoyable and unique in their own regard. Multiple levels have several minutes of butt-clenching parkour and grapple moments that require precise timing, of course with character banter going off the entire time. Overall, I enjoyed the movement aspects of the game, and I really have no strong complaints about it. They've completely tossed out the Diablo mechanics of the previous title and removed pretty much any sort of in-depth customization, opting instead to allow simple upgrades that improve your weapons and playstyle ever so slightly. Combat is very run and gun, and enemies will drop ammo or health based on whether or not you killed them with ranged or melee, making you alternate between, and guns will reload when you swap between them, really encouraging you to scroll through all of them in every combat engagement. You've also got the same sort of finishers you saw in the recent Doom titles, with these requiring an execution bar to be filled to a certain extent based on the power level of the enemy you're trying to execute.
Go watch a movie. Slice and dice, baby. I don't think your insurance will cover that.
Each enemy has a different reward when you do this. Some will fill your health, others will give you a gun, some create a black hole, so it's strategic in some sense to pick and choose which enemy you're executing to make fights easier.
Haven't I?
Bosses have health bars similar to mini-games like this, with arenas being present providing power-ups and constant ammo as you go through and shoot weak spots to eventually bring down the foe. They were alright. Challenges exist that reward you more character and weapon skill points. I finished maybe half of them by the end of the game. With these in the points in the world, I never felt like I wasn't getting them fast enough or being rewarded to justify all the fights that I was forced into. Quite frankly though, I only had a blast for the first hour or so of the game. Enemies quickly became very repetitive, there were about 10 types in total, and the weapons themselves followed suit quite shortly thereafter. In total, you only have 7 weapons, and that's counting your sword melee, and that's it, with none of them really standing out or being interesting enough on their own with their own upgrades to keep that thrill alive. You have a generic revolver, shotgun, some machine guns, and a rocket launcher, with a railgun and saw disc launcher tossed in for good effect. Without the customization, special abilities, or cool effects from the previous game, these just honestly felt bad, and kept me wanting for more all the way until the game abruptly ends. Which leads to the very biggest and possibly most unforgiving part of the entire game. On medium difficulty, without even trying super hard, like I wasn't really trying at all, I was able to beat it in 4 hours. Just 4, I'm not even kidding, 3 hours and 57 minutes. 4 hours, 4 freaking hours. I had to double take, and again, like I said, check my Steam time, 4 hours in total from start to finish when the credits rolled at the end. It went by super fast, I guess, which is good for the game, meaning I was enjoying it. But for $50, God, it's just not worth that in the slightest. Don't get me wrong, it's a solid experience and it was okay considering I didn't pay for anything personally. The key was provided to me from the developer, but good lord, is $50 too much of a price tag for something so incredibly short? There's also no co-op, no additional modes as far as I can tell, no New Game Plus or anything, meaning that once you beat the game, that's that. It's all you get. I tried to load up my save and see if there's at least a start over, but I couldn't find it, and that's disappointment. As I played the last game, Shadow Warrior 2, over a New Game Plus mode for funsies with a friend once we had finished. It's really just a shell of the previous title in so many ways. It's not technically broken in any sense. I never crashed or lagged or had any issues, and all of the cutscenes played flawlessly, but there's just not enough game. It feels more like a demo, I guess, a 4-hour demo, with the conclusion of the story really not being earned or feeling like a reward after what you went through to get there, which wasn't much. These days you gotta, in my opinion, at least have some sort of carrot on a stick mechanic, or if not, at least have your main story be 8 hours long, and Shadow Warrior 3 you get half of that with no goal at all to work towards other than finishing. With that being said, I know this is going to be a short review, but there's really not much else to talk about. The game's 4 hours long, has decent gameplay, and looks good visually, but isn't worth the money they're asking for, and I cannot in good faith encourage anyone to buy it at the price for $50. My final score for Shadow Warrior 3 is going to be a 4 out of 10. Ironically, 4 hours for a 4 out of 10 game, plus the price. But I think that's entirely reasonable for what you get. Sure, it's super funny to play through, enjoyable for a little bit, and visually impressive, but dang man, I keep coming back to it just being 4 hours. Maybe they'll take the criticism they're sure to get and go back to the style of the second game. We can only hope, as I really like Wang as a character and I definitely believe he deserved more than what he got in this third installment. Anyway, let me know what you personally think about the game in the comments, and be sure to leave suggestions for what I should review next. There's a lot of games coming out in March, and I could definitely use your help narrowing down what I review. Appreciate ya. And again, if you enjoyed the video, please feel free to leave a like and maybe even subscribe if you're feeling daring today. Like I said, appreciate all of you, and until the next video, I'll be seeing ya. Bye.